Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I am doing an interview with Avis and Vivian. I've interviewed them both in the past before, and Avis and Vivian are standard and jumper INTJ. So Vivian is the standard one, while Avis is the jumper one. So I'll get them to introduce themselves. So go ahead, Vivian, you can go first.
Hey, I'm Vivian, and I am double feminine, NITE, blast, sleep, play, consume.
All right, Avis.
Hi, I'm Avis. I am NIFI, sleep, consume, play, blast, double feminine.
Okay, awesome. So I think when most people think of INTJs, I think it's more like Vivian, because Vivian is the super standard INTJ. Like, I think the only way you could be even more standard is if you were FM, maybe, because then you would have double masculine saviors, but it's pretty close. So before this interview, Vivian talked about controlling the chaos as opposed to self. So I think that was like the perfect thing to ask you guys first is INTJs is known for control, right? But the control is NITE, but there's also the NIFI component of it. So can you guys talk about controlling things or people versus controlling yourself? Like, how do you guys see it personally? Who wants to go first? Okay, I think we'll go with a blaster with Vivian.
All right. So the stereotype in the OPS community is that control is controlling people, right? That's not really what I do. I control all the other things that I can to avoid dealing with the chaos of the people. So I will plan ahead. I will make sure I'm in the right mood, make sure that everything is set up so that I can have the best time possible and I don't affect anyone else with whatever I choose to do. So it's not really about the other person, it's about me.
But you're tribe above self, so that's kind of the weird caveat with this.
I think that component comes with sleep more than blast. So I believe both of us are double feminine. So both of Avis and I have double masculine sleep. So while I'm tribe above self, I will still lean on my sleep, even if it's demon FI.
I see.
Mm.
What about you, Avis?
Because for me, that's probably a very, very default, right? Like I probably don't even consciously try to do it, but I'm just doing it all the time anyway. So always when things are like, okay, let's just say, for example, for today's thing, like I will already think about it at the last night. So, okay, I have this thing tomorrow at 7:30. What do I need to prepare myself to do that? And before that, I have all this other thing I need to do. So mentally, I have to like plan. So I need to go to my. I have a dance class I need to go. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to plan to do this. I need to talk to this person. And then how much energy would I have in order to do this thing and not embarrassing myself? So there's a lot of energy component that comes into that. So when do I need to like take a break? When do I need to eat? And if there's any other people chaos coming in, I need to prioritize that, like automatically. But oh, sorry, I don't have time to do that, so I'm not gonna reply this person's message or someone's call, or just like I already have a plan in my head before going into today. Because this is a blasting session, so this is taking a lot of my time and energy, and I mentally prep for it. So this is my NIFI that just double masculine, just go right into this is what I need to do in order to be not overextending myself. And also I don't want to drag other people down to disappoint other people as well too. So yeah, so that just what I need to do. And then when it come closer to that time, I'm already anticipating all these things that need to happen. And then to a point where it's like, okay, well, 7 o'clock, I need to cut out these other thing chaos or people chaos. That's it. I need to get into this.
All right, I think my next question is the perfect segue for this. So I noticed with you guys, I feel like if you combine both of you together, then you become complete. And there's something about that like I'll explain what I mean. So when Vivian was explaining the whole control thing, it was very concise and straight to the point. But then Avis, you did the take you along, consume story, you know? So I felt like, okay, if you guys merge together, you become like complete, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but
as in like to the point and also bringing the details.
Yeah, because Vivian was straight to the point, but then she didn't provide any details, right? But then you provide a lot of details, but it wasn't like to the point. So I felt like when you guys combine together, then it becomes like the full picture has been shown, you know?
Because she already talked about my point. So I just like, okay, she already did that.
Yes,
And
yes.
she explained what I would have explained if I had thought of that.
Okay, well, this is the perfect segue anyways, because the elephant in the room here is Vivian, you are blaster to the max. You're like, supposedly, you don't come across very blaster to me though. Like, but Avis, you are consume savior. So, you know, you guys kind of have that opposite thing happening. Double activate consume versus consume less. Looking at each other, what do you think you can learn from someone that has something that you don't have? So Vivian, for example, Avis has the super double activate consume, while for you, Avis, Vivian has the blast, you know? So what do you guys think you can learn from each other if you were like to incorporate that like missing last animal?
I guess I would ask, like, how does Vivian get started? Like, how do you get into the productivity mode and not worrying about, because I can't help myself to just like envision all the possible things that might go wrong. So I need to like consume more information, missing information in order to be prepared for all this stuff before I get started. So how do you get in? So in that would consume a lot of energy already. So how do you just get going all the time? If that's what you do.
Well, to be fair, I feel like sometimes that's also like savior sensory blasters seem to be able to do the thing easier than even than me, because they'll do the thing in reality, while I'll just be like, okay, I could do this, I could do this, I need a plan to do this, but I won't get down to starting it. Sometimes it depends on if it's someone else that needs something from me, and I can get it done way faster than if I try to do something for myself. So
okay.
To the getting started part, it's a lot of ignoring everything else just to be like, all right, I'm gonna sit, like I write, so I just have to like put myself in a chair, sit in front of the computer and be like, okay, I have to write for this amount of like 20 minutes, and then I can do something else, but I have to do something and ignore everything else. Otherwise, if I pay attention to, oh, my friend messaged me, oh, this isn't the right music, then I will never get started.
Okay, that sounds very similar to me. So are you a last minute person? Are you a deadline person? Like if someone give you a deadline, then you would definitely like, because that sounds more TE to me, like someone else, you're doing something for someone else and you just really clear and just do it.
Yeah, I think if someone else gives me a deadline, I can work to that deadline, but making deadlines for myself, it's like doing the thing for me is harder, because it's like, oh, but I need to do this thing for someone else, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds pretty similar. Yeah, because it's just like, as long as there's a deadline, I can just like get it done. Just like I could procrastinate every day and get distracted by 1,000 things. But because when it approached the deadlines closer and closer, and then just like I'm just like full blast going into it because there's that outside pressure to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that sounds very similar. Yeah, because I thought Sleep Blast would have some sort of different mode.
I feel like the sleep plus like NI versus reality SI maybe. I feel like I watch the SI figures doing things
Mhm.
in reality way more than, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, I could do that.
Where do you see your blast play out then?
Most of the time I see how concise I talk. Like I will give
Mm.
to summer, I it's like I'm constantly speaking in very summarized sentences. Like if I say, oh, I went on a trip last summer to the beach, the end. That's it. That's all you get. It's way too concise, so you don't get a full like, oh, I went to the beach, I almost drowned, you get less detail. And also like my blast also is like I'm explaining how I'm blasting. It comes in explanations and of how things work and just succinct communication. So sometimes I don't give enough information or I'm too vague just because I'm cutting all the sensory out. So
And then
that's
you
where
are
I
kind of letting other people to fill the gap of like asking questions
yes.
or guessing what's in your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds familiar. I have a close friend who is, I'm pretty sure, a typical INTJ. So it's like, I think I know exactly how his brain works, so I can guess what the void is, what he's not left not to say. In a way, then he just said less and less. It's just become point form.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It sounds like you're talking bullet points, Vivian. That's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
then
yeah, go ahead.
and then to people outside of us, when they listen to our conversation, they are very confused because you'll be talking point form. I'll be like, and then I'll be filling the blank and nobody else will understand what we're talking about. Yeah.
I
Sounds
see.
about right.
Yeah. So it makes sense. Like you guys combined together is the complete, like the complete package. You know, Vivian will do her point, and then Avis will like fill in the blanks. You know.
Yeah. And other people would ask me, Avis, can you explain what was happening? And I have to start from the beginning.
Right.
I would be like, okay, you're asking me to blast.
Yeah. So you're the translator for the
Yeah.
for the standard INTJs.
Yeah, apparently.
We need
yes.
translators because
Yeah.
we don't
Yes.
talk enough.
Yeah. That's so sad. But anyway. I think your style, Vivian, I think it's okay if like you're talking to someone that's lead intuition also. And then they're like, okay, I can fill in the blanks. But if you're talking to like an ESTP, for example, and they're like,
I annoy them so much.
yeah, they're
But
like,
they annoy
what?
me. So
Yeah. It's like you trigger each other. So I think this is the perfect segue for the next part. So the big thing with OPS right now, which I really like, I like how this is being covered, is how your fourth function is the triggering function. But if like one of your function that's higher up is potentially like the harder one, you still won't get triggered by it because it's like the first two functions. So Avis, for example, you're blast last, but you're an INTJ. That's your first two function, you know, NIT, right? So your triggering function is still your extrovert sensing, but it's double activated. So so for Vivian, being consumed last, it's gonna be like double the trigger because it's not just last, the consume is also last. So SE last, consume last, and then play demon. So it's like a super, super, super demon. I can't even imagine how bad the tidal wave is. You can elaborate in a second. But and then for Avis, for you, you're accessing that SE at the bottom twice, you know, when you're consuming your play. And then your blast last. So, and then I noticed actually when I met you in person and you're like chatting with my girlfriend, say type twin, I noticed like you can blast, like you're okay with blasting and you actually like it, you know, even though your blast last. So what are you guys' take on that? Like with the bottom function being the triggering one and being okay with the higher one. I know for Vivian it's gonna be, so for Vivian, I'm more curious how bad the tidal wave is because it's double demon, right? For Avis, it's not a double demon, but because you're using it all day, maybe it's very stressful. So let's go with Avis first for this one, and then Vivian, you can go to the next one. So go ahead, Avis.
Yeah, it's definitely something because I am more aware of my last two animal, like my demon. But the thing is, I like their analogy about the engine and then the wiring. So how the grand stack still work for function, right? So technically my NI is the largest engine, TE still pretty big, and my FI and SE technically like smaller capacity, but it's just that they are wired so like the, I don't know, the highway, the gray matter is just so strong and so activated all the time. So it's very easy to activate them, work them. It's just that they gas out quicker. But when I need to use the blast, they're there. Like my NI is just super comfortable. And my TE is there. Is not a super triggering function at all for me. I can do just a double decider thing pretty easily. And I like finding a solution that work for others. I like finding a solution that work for everyone. So if it's not my priority, is not something I go default to because I always think about myself first, but it's not, it is activating all day. Like I never ignore them. And when the consume or something that piqued my interest when I'm in play, it just come pretty naturally as long as I get it going. So like you said, as long as I get the engine going, you just keep going. So it's definitely not I don't find that a blind spot for me is that too much because I'm triggering that every single day. So in terms, people around me sees that my emotions are pretty stable. Like I'm really, not a lot of things that would trigger me, people problem or thing problem, not too much. Like just because I am triggering in myself, like breaking gas all the time internally, all day already. Yeah.
All right, and then for Vivian, it's gonna. Can you talk about your like how bad your tidal waves would be with like that double, like the super SE demon at the bottom?
I think the problem with feminine SE is that I don't see it. Like I straight up do not see the SE. It's like my brain just like, oh, I need sensory for that. Blocks it out, ignores it. But then the problem comes is that my NI is still rolling. It's kind of like, to use an analogy, it's like starting at the top of a snowy mountain and it's like the NI is like picking up snow as it's rolling down the mountain and it's just like getting larger and larger, and then at the end it's just like explodes into nothing because then it finally hits a tree or something.
Right.
So
that's a good analogy. I like that one.
So then what triggers me is when like I will be like building this concept of, let me see if I have a better example. Like if I'm dealing with a friend, I'll like be, as we're interacting, talking, I will be building an NI of maybe what they think of me, what I think of them. And it's just slowly building and building. But then one day I realized, wait, I don't like how this is snowballing. This is actually really hurtful. Why am I like, it's like connecting like bad connotations to like my identity or something, like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm whatever. And then I realized, I'm like, hold on, why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking that this person thinks this about me when they've never said this? It's just all in my head, this big NI ball of like what I think they think of me from things they've said and built up. And then at the time I'm like, why? So I have to like basically destroy that idea and replace it with a better idea.
But are you gonna gather like new materials to build on a new idea?
I mean, it's not that hard if you have Google.
I guess so. Fair enough. Okay.
It's a matter of just like replacing stupid with not stupid, or like pulling examples from reality of experiences where I was not stupid. So it's like building the identity around those experiences versus all the negative memories. So it's like replacement.
So how did you suddenly get an idea? Because it sounds like your trigger was tidal wave was not external. It's something you internally figured, like suddenly shocked by it.
It was kind of both, because it was like because I get in like super sleep mode where I'm like overthinking, thinking about my identity, myself, and like it's just like spinning and spinning. And then I like sit there and like realize I don't feel good about this. This doesn't feel good. Why am I continuing to do this if it doesn't feel good? So then it was kind of like an external trigger of one too many times of like taking in that negative concept, which triggered me to like overthink it and then be like, no, this is stupid. We're done here.
So something happened in reality, or it's like a fact that you picked up, or someone said something you picked up that triggered you to think about it?
Yeah, like
Mhm.
usually a close friend, because when it's like some random person, it's just like,
Who
screw
cares?
you.
Yeah. Just very easily feminist that's true. We just don't even see that. That's fine.
You're
But if
not
it's someone,
valuable. Bye.
no, yes, no, you don't exist anyway.
Nope, not real.
No, no. Yeah, because there will be something that, well, a close friend said that is outside expectation, right? Then that would be like, whoa, more of a tighter way for you to think about it, right?
Yeah, it's like a weird, not an expectation, but like I think there's that expectation there, like you said, like,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, the expectation is I am a certain way, and I'm like, no, screw that. I don't like that.
It sounds like from your description, Vivian, that even your NI and FI are moving at different speed. It sounds like your NI is like building something so fast, and then your FI is like trying to hold the brakes, like hold on.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's like hold on. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. What are you doing? You know. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, what the hell? It's like even within inside, there's something like two different things happening at one time. You know. So
I think
I just wonder if that's because you're tribe above self. You know. So I don't know. Like I don't know if that's what's making that happen.
I can kind of see it because she's double activated on an NI and single activated on FI. I am the opposite. I'm actually only single activated on NI and double activated on FI.
That's true.
So
That's
my
true, yes.
FI is catching on quicker.
Yes.
So my NI snowball, like it will still do the same snowballing, but my FI catch up faster. So it won't be like, after a long time and then be like, whoa, I am like losing sleep or whatever, then whatever. Like my if I catch up more and I pick up like my body sensation more or something like that's helping me. The SE is helping my FI the consume part to really catch up to my NI on this this default of this growing of the concept, because if I don't double check that assumption, it grow into this crazy monster itself, where it's like, no, you are getting yourself into this stupid assumption that is not factual in reality. Why don't you just ask that person? So yeah. Mhm.
You know, it's kind of messed up that like how you guys explained that too, because like you would have saved so much time if you just asked the person, because you know you're like energy dominant and you're trying to preserve energy.
Yes.
Yet like you spent all this time like processing it when you could have just asked the person directly. That could have taken you like just like 5 minutes. And then
You don't know. You thought it was so real. What you perceive from that person said or the tone, you took that in as reality, as fact, without knowing that it's your NI taking the perception that's wrong, right? Because that's what happened when you're N over S.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
your description though, Avis. Like the single activated NI is so much different from the double activated, especially the masculine. So
Mhm.
I never saw it explained quite this way, but it's really good, I think, because like it shows the distinction between you guys quite well.
Yeah, because we are both masculine and IFI. So
Right.
I know exactly what she's talking about. But because my FI is a little bit stronger with the pathway and with
Yeah.
the help of SE and the consume, right? So there is more of a help that way to balance out the NI. So that's why this is internal brake and gas in me that's constantly happening to like double check my NI, because when my NI gets too weird, I have a break in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have double activated FI also, so it can move almost like the same speed as your
Mhm.
FI. So it's not,
Almost.
yeah, almost not.
Yeah.
It's still crazy because it's still
Still
masculine.
crazy.
But
Yes.
yeah. The masculine NI like I think it's like I think hands down all the 8 function masculine NI is the craziest. Like there's no for me there's no denying it anymore. It is hands down the craziest. The other thing that you guys are different about is Vivian, you are NT and Avis is NF. So I kind of want to get you guys to talk about that a bit. Now I know Vivian, you have NF second, so it's still there, but it's not the default, right? You're not like a hippie, but maybe you are hippie-ish. I don't know. I don't know how you see yourself. Maybe you can elaborate that in a second. But Avis, you are NT last, you know.
Mhm.
Vivian has both the NT and the NF, right? But you have like NT in the bottom. You know, Vivian has a SF in the bottom. So um what's your take on that, Avis, of like life being an NF hippie? And you know what, from my perspective, I do notice that the NIFI is the least hippiest of all like the NF hippies, you know, because like if you look at the NIFI hippie versus like the INFJ or ENFP, like those guys are more crazy as like hippie, you know, than your type. Even the NEFE, the ENTP version, they don't seem very hippie-ish, you know, even though they're like a hippie type. So can you talk about like the NIFI NF identity of yours, and then we'll go to Vivian with like being lead NT afterwards.
I think that because of the NIFI is so like internal as well too, and it's more about self and controlling of self and controlling my own emotion. So it might look more serious. So it's kind of not matching the typical definition of what a hippie is, right? You're so much like the typical feeling of like, oh, love and trees and love everybody, that kind of hippie, or or weird art or something like that. I think NF is definitely vibe. Like I'm definitely more about vibe. Like I could just so how I make my decision or how I feel about somebody or how I feel about anything is vibe first. So I think that's the biggest difference, because it will be NF would be the first, and then my second it would be the SF. So it just everything, it's just F is trumping T so much. um, and I do get into the ST of the logic when I try to interact with the outside using details and logic of that. But how I make my own decisions about life, about work, about any aspect of my life is just feeling, and which I feel very intuitively makes sense. And the more I study about psychology, the more I study about human decision making, it is all based on your feeling as well too. It's not so much about logic. So I think that kind of secretly confirming that part about, okay, is there nothing wrong about trusting your instinct, trusting your intuition, your feeling a part about it. So I just feel like I think I grew more comfortable about trusting my own instinct and feeling. And because if I don't, I literally cannot contain myself. It will feel a cognitive dissonance. Like I need to match my behavior with my value, like to almost to the T. Like if I don't, I will either just like blow up in some other way. That will be my tidal wave if I try to bury something. So I find it really interesting to talk to my NT friends who they might find their value and their behavior might not need to be aligned, which is like totally bizarre to me. So I guess that's where my NF thing is. And also I'm more, I think, in a way of balance, in a way that my career side is dealing with a lot of NT side, a lot of ST side, but my personal life, I am more artsy, I'm a dancer, and I do a lot of creative stuff. So I need that balance. I think that once I understand my type, I totally understand that too. I might not love my job, but I'm good at it. And but I'm really happy to like get off my work time and then go into what I love to do, my NF side. Yeah.
And then I think Avis, there's another comparison I want you to make with Vivian. You have double activate SE, so I noticed like you do a lot of like physical activities like dancing, and you do like rock climbing too. Is that something you do? Yeah. So you're doing like a lot of like physical activity stuff that's like more SF. So so for Vivian, Vivian, you are double activated NT, right? And then SF last essentially. I'm curious to see like what your life is like in comparison to Avis, who's doing all this like physical activity stuff. Is that something like you avoid? You mostly focus on like mental stuff, or like what's going on there? So let's start with the double activated NT first. You know,
A lot of it is the NT is like, we've already talked about the NI, but the TE over FI, I just see myself stuffing my emotions down. Like if something hits me of like, ooh, I don't like that, I will sometimes recognize it if it's a familiar emotion. So I'll be like, oh, I didn't like that. I need to deal with that later. But right now I'm doing something with friends. I don't know. It can be anything really. Like if I'm in public, I will shut that down and just keep doing what I'm doing. And like, even though I'm like, I know probably some people can tell that that hit my emotions, I won't say anything about it and just shove it to the side. And then later I will process it when I'm by myself, because I'm like, I don't want to process in front of other people.
right? It's personal.
So it's like the NT is just, I'm constantly like trying to figure out how things fit together. So like because writing's basically all I do, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, how does this city connect to this city? What is their format of ruling? How do they govern? What is this system like? So I'm like figuring things out, but it's all conceptual. It's not really real. usually,
Mhm.
because I don't find real stuff that fun because I can't do anything about real stuff very much. So I'm just like, yeah, screw real life. I'll just make it up and I can control that.
What was the last like real life stuff activity that you participated in, and how did that end?
Uh, like the most, I don't leave my house very often. So the most physical activity I do is like walk on the treadmill. And I don't enjoy that very much because it's not fun, but I'm just like, I know I need the exercise so that I don't like be completely lazy.
I like how you walk on the treadmill instead of walking outside, you know, because it's just
It's too hot. Have you been to Texas?
Oh, you're in
It's
Texas.
100 degrees.
Fair enough. Okay.
If
Yeah.
it was cooler, I would be outside, but it's too hot for that.
Yeah, you need to move to like a colder place.
Honestly, I like colder places better.
Yeah, and I relate a lot to what you said earlier, being like a fellow NT first. So it's like I'm also double activity NT, so like I'll feel bad about like something that would happen, and I'll be like, I'm gonna put it in a back pocket for now. It's there. I won't forget it. I'll put it in my back pocket and I'll think about it when I get home. You know, so I can relate to that. But I think it's like, you know, earlier, Vivian, you were talking about like we're talking about like the speed of the NI and FI, and like the NI is going so fast, but like the FI is like trying to like hit the brakes, you know.
Mhm.
So like since dating my girlfriend, who is like Avis's type twin, it's like I now remember like a few instances where I actually stopped the NT to go to the FI, you know, and I was like, no, it's gonna get worse if I don't address the FI first. Like for example, one time we were moving and my girlfriend's freaking out, and I was like, my normal is like, nope, let's bulldoze through this, let's finish the moving, and then we'll talk about the feelings after. But I remember there was like one moment where I was like, no, feelings has to come first in this moment. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna talk to her about feelings. Okay, I'll put a time limit to it. Okay, I'll put like 5 to 10, 15 minutes maximum. Okay, and then but it has to come first because I felt like something's gonna go bad if I don't do it. So I stopped what we were doing, and then I just talked to her for like 5 to 15 minutes about like the feeling, the NF vibe, make sure it's okay and stuff. And then once we cleared it up, and she felt heard, then she was able to do like the ST, and then I was like, oh, damn, it worked. Like this feeling stuff is valuable,
It worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Yes, it worked.
Yeah, it worked. Yeah. So I
Let
was
me
like,
just jerry rig these feelings so that they work properly so I can do the thing properly.
yes, exactly. Yeah. I still did that stuff. I still did the NT, but I incorporated the F too,
Right.
to make the NT
As a
work better.
tool, to make the NT work. Because for us, if the vibe is not right, nothing is right. It just like, what's the point? Like, I think that's what we think. Like, what's the point if you make it work if it's not the right thing?
I think your perspective is more accurate though, Avis. I think I think the way me and Vivian are doing it is probably wrong. Because like no, like cause like, okay, like let's say you're like dating someone, right? And then you're trying to, let's say for us, we're moving, right? So what's the point of moving all this stuff to another place when the vibe is bad and we end up breaking up?
Exactly.
There's no point. There's no point of moving all this shit,
Exactly.
you
need to know why. You need to know the intention. You need to know.
Yeah. No. So I think you're right. I think you like the way you do it first. I think it's like the better. Like what's the point? The NF point, right? Because without the NF point, then the NT is like why are you figuring stuff out when there's clearly like a bigger problem here?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm in agreement with you. But like, so Vivian, you do have both of them in a savior state. You have NF and NT in a savior state. So what's your take on this? Because like you do have the vibe thing still with that NF, especially for people that you care about. So like what's going on there? Like, because you have them both in the savior state.
I think there's more of a delay, probably. It's not an immediate, but like if I have a bad interaction with someone and then it hit me in the feelings somehow, I will, at the end of the day, I'll like think about it and be like, okay, is this important enough to say something about it? Is this something that I just hurt my own feelings? They didn't do anything wrong. I just hurt my own feelings. I do that often enough. And then after maybe a day, it depends on what it was and how important it was, how long it takes me to address it. But once I've like figured out if it's important to me or not, then I'll say something to my friend and be like, hey, can we not do this again? Or whatever needs to happen so that it can adjust for what my priority is.
How do you go about if you were having, you have to talk to a friend about it? Because you're double feminine play, right? So it's gonna be like super tippy-toey, but but then you have to assert yourself. You have to be assertive. So it's kind of hard to be assertive when you have double feminine play. Unless you have like your sleep as your saver, like Avis, like. But I'm probably gonna guess that for Avis it's also gonna be hard because it's also double feminine play. I don't know. You can tell me in a second, but yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
Well, because of the way I address it, it's a blast way of addressing it.
Oh, okay.
So it's not, I'm not going and being like, okay, so how can we fix this? No. I'm like, hey, don't do that again.
Oh, I see.
It depends on what it is, though. I will clarify that and who it is, because some of my guy friends, I'll be way meaner to them right away. Whereas I feel like, because like mentally I'm like, oh, I need to be nicer to the friends that are girls. It's just internal wiring of, oh, I need to be nicer. But the guys, I'm just like, no, get away. Stop that.
I see. So do you find it's easier with like dudes then?
I think so. It may be like a cultural, oh, they're supposed to be more blunt or whatever, so they can take it better, which isn't necessarily true, but that's the way my brain has operated.
I see. What about you, Avis?
About confronting people?
Yeah, like let's say you have to assert yourself, because like the boundary has been broken or a behavior that's unacceptable, happened.
Yeah, I think that is definitely more blast than play, because play would be something that I'm definitely more comfortable with. Like, I think I will start approaching it more like a play and then getting more into blast because I need to warm up. And because I will probably bring it up more like, hey, remember this time, that time, blah, 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 da, 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 and get what their take on it. It's like what their perspective is. So I get into more of a play consume thing going on, play. And then once I kind of confirm what my NI has planned out to be true and no misinformation, because sometimes there is misinformation about, I didn't consider that from their perspective or something. And then I will readjust my feelings or, right away, right? Because most of the time it is about they are something that I didn't consider. Like I'm missing some of things that I didn't know before or it could, and then I'll be like, oh, I know. And then at that moment, how you say it just, or what you did, I didn't consider. So that made me feel you weren't being respectful, or I feel ignored or something like that. So I usually approach it like a play. But if I did realize, oh, there's no missing information, and that was just, they just probably didn't notice, or they just being, I don't know, like, they thought that's just how you're supposed to act or something, then I will lay out my line. That would be a last resort usually, because I'm not comfortable doing that, but I have to learn to do that. Be like, hey, this is my line, right? I still won't be forcefully say it in a mean way, but if I say something, that will be like almost like a last resort. And I have to care enough about that person to say something. Because if I don't care about that person, it's very easy for me just to like back away or just disappear or you just don't exist in my life. I would just,
Um,
Avoid them.
yes.
I'm curious though, Avis. So you're blast last, and I noticed with blast last people, there's a time bomb thing about you guys. Have you ever exploded? Have a time bomb ever exploded on people?
I don't, if that's a tidal wave thing I really try to avoid now. Like I don't like exploding on people.
But has it happened though?
Because I think back in the day, definitely in my 20s happens probably a lot because
Okay.
I'll be pushing myself down a lot, right? The emotion things, or it's like things I feel like, oh, I just not comfortable with confronting. I know my feeling is right away, but I just don't feel comfortable confronting, blasting, and clear my line. Then I just keep pressing it down, and then explode. That's basically what that is. Yeah.
Do you have like a concrete example of like when it happened? If it's something you don't mind sharing. So I'll just like quickly share. So before my girlfriend's your type twin, so I used to have a roommate who was like a douchebag, right? And my girlfriend got fed up with me like putting up with his shit because I'm like double feminine play, and I think my room is double masculine. So one day my girlfriend just opened the door like after she got fed up like listening to me like putting up with this shit, and he went up to my roommate. Hey, he's like, she looked up at him. He's like, "Hey, you piece of shit!" Just like straight up, just called him. He's like, "It's a piece of shit," right? Like, and then that double masculine guy, he's like not used to like people like fighting back, right? So he got rattled. He didn't even know what to do. And I was like, "Oh my god!" My girlfriend just like bitch slapped him with her words, like calling him a piece of shit, And I was like, I've never heard her say that to anyone before. It was like a pure time bomb. Like she just yelled, call him a piece of shit, like, hey, piece of shit. I'm like, wow, what the hell, So has anything like that happened to you with like the blast last time bomb?
And it for me, if it's the same person or something repeating, I would have dealt with it like on a day-to-day basis. I will not let it get to that point. But I recently kind of realized there are some trigger that could be from different people from different experiences, but it's the similar experiences. And I would, because each individually might not be a big deal. Like this things about like, how when you go to a different store, you have this like their card or whatever, right? And then you have to scan them and it's really annoying to bring all this cards and stuff. So I have this app that you could just put them in and scan them. And then so you carry all this thing in your phone. But for some store, it doesn't work. They don't scan the thing very well or whatever, or they question you. It's like, what the heck is that? So each individual store sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. So when it doesn't work for like, okay, once you feel like, okay, that's okay, then I'll just tell you my phone number or whatever it is, like deal with it, right? But when it get to accumulate to a point and it gets to me and I didn't realize it get to me, and I was at one at the store and it didn't work. And that person accused me of taking a picture of someone else's card. And I pretty much explode right there.
I don't blame you. That's like accusing your identity of being like a thief.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's just rude.
That's super rude. And then he's like, that's a picture. So anyway, I kind of just like really pissed off right there. And then my boyfriend said, oh, that's okay, just use my card. It was just like, and he's like, oh, and he was really surprised. Oh, I rarely ever see you get pissed off. Like you were really like going off there. I was like, yeah. So I kind of also, I was processing it there right away, but I realized it's that accumulating of the things, and how it trigger like attack my identity as well too. Then I would, yeah, that would go for it.
it sounds like your boyfriend also had like FE, the way you're describing it, like at that time.
Oh,
Maybe.
he is.
Yeah, because like I'm TE, right? So when my girlfriend explodes on people, I'm like, and I'm also an EP, so I'm like, this is chaos, it's amusing, you know, like
Yes,
I'm
he
like,
is.
yeah, because I would just let it happen. I was like, let's see how this unfolds, like that's kind of like my take on it. I'll just sit there, I'm like, just watch, I'm like, And then, she's exploded a few times already, and every time I never stop it. I'm just like, let this come out, and I will just observe and see what happens, you know, and I'll make fun of her when I get home, you know. Uh,
I don't think that's a good idea because then that will be like attacking her FI again.
no, it's fine. We're really good. So we've been together for 9 years, so Um, so Vivian, I don't see you like exploding on people because I feel like you are like the ultimate double decider. I don't know if you've exploded. Maybe you can share a story, but like your first animal is like a observer animal, and your fourth one is also observer, and your like middle one is the decider. So I don't feel like, because like Avis has like a decider first animal, right? So she would have like some people problems, not like as bad as me, because I have like first and fourth are decider animals, but it's still there. But it's still we're all double deciders still at the end of the day. But so what's your take on that personally with like exploding on people and like being like super double decider E?
When I was younger, I exploded a little bit more on people, but even then, I'm like you, Avis. I don't like confrontation. It's not fun. I get all the anxiety. It's just so uncomfortable. But I usually see the double deciding aspect where maybe someone might have finally like trigger me, and I'll finally like send them a strongly worded email. No, it's not strongly worded. Even if I'm upset, I will like try to cool down or like type out all that I want to say or something. Like I will be constantly figuring out how am I going to say this so that it's the least offensive way to say this, because I will rarely get to the point where I go for like in like really sharp insults unless I'm like joking with a friend who understands that I'm joking. So I see when I am double deciding, I usually there's like I blame myself more than the other person. So I'll be more forgiving of the other person way too much, to the point where then it swings back to being like, nah, stop that. What about what I want? So as I've gotten older, that's gotten easier to be like, okay, hold up, what do I want? Like that sounds fun and all, but does this line up with what I want to do? And I feel like I've hit that realization earlier just because I've had several experiences where it was like not good friendships or relationships where it was like I kept pushing myself down to the point where it was like not good. So because of that, I've like when I start seeing myself slipping down the path of like letting it go too much, I'm like, you can say no. So.
Yeah, because I wonder if because even though I am double activated FI, when I am in like a relationship or people that I consider close in my bubble, I would still put them first.
Mhm.
Yeah. So even though maybe that gap is a little bit narrower compared to you, but I will still push my own feeling down and consider their feeling first, almost in that way. So yeah, and then it gets to a point where like, oh no, it's not balanced anymore, and then I will need to do something about it. So that's where I feel like, oh, a lot of time that TE or whatever that others first is still pretty apparent in my personality when someone is in my bubble, in my FI. If not, no. So yeah, so I'm just curious about probably that's even more apparent in your life too, because then that would be harder for you to, because you would be like, yeah, TE, like you would definitely put others first until you couldn't take it anymore. You feel so uncomfortable in your FI, and then you have to do something about that. Yeah. And then be assertive, I guess.
It looks like I'm sure all of us have heard of the INFJ door slam. That's what it ends up looking like to me from my perspective, is like just like cutting that person off. I'm not dealing with you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's very rare for me to get to that point. I think
Oh.
I've only gotten to that point to the extreme of I've never contacted that person again was like once. The other time I've like shoved people out of my immediate circle, like your opinion no longer matters to me, so I'm gonna just push you away and stay in my own bubble away from you.
Do you have because I find for me it's harder for me to let people to come in. So that defense for me is very, very hard. So once you're in, and it will be really hard for me to push that person out and cut somebody out. It is the same thing for you as well too?
Yeah, it's like maybe when I was like a kid, it was, oh, we're just kids. No, I don't know about the world, so I'll just let you in. Doesn't matter. As I've gotten older, it's like I've built a castle wall around myself as time gone on, to the point where it's like becoming friends with someone takes years to let them
for
in.
sure. Yes.
Because otherwise it's like, you're going to cause chaos in my life. And I don't want to deal with that.
Because it's very interesting, because my INTJ friend, he also uses castle as an analogy. Castle up in a mountain.
Up in a mountain. Oh, he put himself on an incline. Have you climbed a mountain?
Yeah, I guess for Vivian, it's on the ground, flat.
It's on the ground a little bit easier.
There's a moat. There's a drawbridge. There's a force field outside the drawbridge.
Yeah.
That force field, you're not getting past that, let alone the drawbridge and the castle.
Is that really how you describe yours? Because like I feel like I'm just listening to you talk, and I'm like, it seems like for you it's like you have like the castle that only a few people can enter the castle, right? But I feel like you have an open field where like people can like hang out there. They're not in the castle. They can chill out in the field, you know.
They're not in the force field, because they can't see the force field.
They can't.
So they think they're in, but they are not.
Yes, exactly.
So the force field is around the castle itself, and then there's like a visitors area outside the castle where it's like it's fine. All right, and then so when you're talking about like it's easy for you to push people out, is it to push them out of the castle or out of the field?
Out of the field's easier. If they're in the castle, you have to like get the guards. You have to like get the law, make sure that they've broken enough laws to kick them out,
Yeah.
Like,
But
it's still like it's still hard to do that though, right? Or is it easier?
hard?
It's complicated, hard. It's like takes so much energy too.
Yeah.
Like that's like, am I just gonna like let them chill here because I don't have the energy to just shove them out?
I think like when you guys were talking about like that stuff, like like it's like hard to, it's like you guys, even though Avis you're self-above tribe, it's still hard for you to be self-above tribe once someone's inside the castle.
Yes.
I think like I completely see that for like the IJ type, because your FI is still third, because like with me and my girlfriend, I feel like I am definitely more selfish than her because my FI is second, even though I'm tribe above self. And yeah, it's weird how that works. It's still weird. Like the function stack still
Yeah, it still
it
works.
still makes a big difference, you know.
Mhm.
So I think even Dave said like, yeah, those ESFPs the tribe about self, the SET, he said they're more selfish than him, even though he's like self above tribe, you know. It's like it's weird because of like how the function stack works. Um,
Yeah.
you know, especially once they recognize like the tribe of selves recognize that they can use that FI better than the TE for like the
Mhm.
EP, for example, then it's like, okay, you know, it's like, okay, you know, it's eventually because we're talking about containers earlier, right? Like,
Mhm.
Avis using, I think, the engine analogy. I actually prefer the balloon analogy because I feel like your function stack are like balloons. Like, you know, your first one, let's say you got NI is the biggest one, and then TE, FI, and then SE, right? But like for you, Avis, even though you have SE in the bottom, so you're pumping the balloon, right? So it's getting bigger, but the container's not as big as your like and your TE, let's say, right?
Mhm.
So even though your TE is technically your worst demon, there's just so much space to pump air into it before it like, you know, it becomes hard to expand, you know. Um, so that's why I like the balloon analogy better than the engine analogy because I think it's like an expanding thing, you know.
Mm.
Like it's like because I feel like when you have like something that's like an engine, it's like fixed, but balloon like it still gets bigger. So your SE you use it a lot, right? So you know,
I know, but the capacity is so small. It's like because I think I like the engine because it's about horsepower, it's about energy, it's how much you produce, how much you're using it. It's a small horsepower, and I just need to like rest more often.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess with like the SE in the
Mhm.
bottom, you'll never be like those people with like the motorcycle that like jumps and flips and stuff. Like, you know, like
Mhm.
like you'll never do it like those insane SE stuff, you know, like
I need to know. I do some crazy stuff, like I do flying trapeze and stuff like that.
what really?
Yeah, but I realized something. It's like I need to mentally know that I'm safe. Like there's that the whole NI part of security is so important to me. Like when I'm harnessing and things like that. It's a mental thing. If I mentally know I'm safe, I can do anything. Yeah. It,
Would you
it,
would you jump on a trapeze, Vivian?
I mean, in 8th grade, they had like, I don't know if either of you have been to a school where they like have this like, uh, I forgot what it's called, but it's like they have a bunch of like stuff that's high above the ground that you put harnesses on so that you can climb and walk on them. I forget what they're called.
yeah, I know what you mean.
Or
Yeah.
like those treetop adventures? Those
Kind
kind?
of like that. I've done those before, and in 8th grade we had this like, there was just this big telephone pole that you would be harnessed in, and then you'd climb to the top and then jump for like a ring like about this big. I still have it. And I was stubborn when I got up there. They hadn't put the ring on the little thing that they were supposed to. So I was like, no, you put the ring on and I will stay here at the top of this telephone pole trembling until I jump for the ring, because what's the point of jumping for that bar? I'm here to jump for the ring.
I see. That's funny.
So I have done some things that I would consider adrenaline inducing,
Yeah, yeah.
but
How did you feel about that?
for the most part I like them. Some of them I could do without because like sometimes the harness hurts or something, or it was just like not as fun. But I do like the zip lines. Those are
Oh,
fun.
yeah. They don't feel very dangerous either.
No,
Oh, they're more okay.
the
Uh,
harness is safety.
I have a client in my day job. I work as a fitness trainer, and I have a client. I think he's a play last INTJ. Definitely very info dominant.
Mm.
I think he's NIFI, like Avis. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's a psychotherapist. So I love talking to him. We have like really good conversations about psychology and stuff. So he said something to me, and I don't know if you guys relate to this. So he said there's no such thing as an introvert and extrovert. He said to me that an extrovert is simply a person that has that what's the word he used that is understimulated and then
Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
an introvert
Mhm.
is someone that's easily overstimulated. Hence why you need to retreat. Be
Yes,
alone. So
that is.
do you guys relate
Mhm.
to that? Do you guys feel like you get overstimulated easily? So it's you need to
Um, I think it definitely.
wait, no,
I
wait, hold on. Vivian's technically an extrovert though. So Vivian's tricky as hell because she you seem like an introvert, Vivian, but you're technically an extrovert. So it's like it's very confusing. But anyways, yeah, go ahead, Avis.
because I learned that concept back in school time. It kind of explained a lot about adrenaline junkie, and because they are constantly understimulated, so they are always trying to seek for the high so they feel good. Whereas more introverted person are like you're constantly stimulated through like we're almost over hypersensitive in different area, so you are constantly hyper stimulated by outside stimuli. So I totally I think once I learned that, I totally get it, because there are different aspects of my life where I could be under or over, and also in a situation where I felt overwhelmed, and I can turn my head and think about it that way. It was actually all just in my head. And that whole feeling of safety and secure thing is all mental. And once I kind of get rid of that chaos, overwhelm, then I can really enjoy all kinds of like SE activity and actually enjoy the fun of that, of the adrenaline hit. So in a way, I see that. But I feel like, oh my God, that is like such a trick that anybody can do anything, but you have to understand your own wiring first. Yeah. And that's how you trick yourself as well too.
What about you, Vivian? You're in a weird space because, like, honestly, if I didn't know you, I mean, if I didn't know OPS, I would think you're an introvert, you know, and maybe you think of yourself as an introvert as well. I don't know, but you are not an introvert. You have Blossom playing your first three animals, right? So where do you stand with this? Because you're in a weird you're in a weird place here.
Like if I remember the OPS like alignment of introvert to extrovert, I was like smack in the middle.
Yeah,
Mm.
you're an ambivert then.
So, but I do see myself way like I have several sleep last friends, and I see that they're able to keep going and keep going and keep going. And after like 10-20 minutes, I'm like, oh, I need to step away, get a drink, do something else. Cause I feel like there's like Avis was saying, that there's like different levels of like stimulus. Like I definitely relate to easily overstimulated by, if I'm prepared for the stimulus, I'm fine. But if it's like loud noises, unexpected noises that mean that I have to deal with something, if it's like dealing with surprise visit from someone, I need to be prepared to use my energy properly. um so I see myself as an introvert, and but I do see that it takes very little for me to get SE overstimulated. But with FI, that's where I see that I need a higher level of stimulus to affect my FI. So it's like it depends on which function it is.
So if it's like people related, then you have more tolerance to it versus like something that's more like a thing,
Chaos things.
like an activity or something. Is that what you're trying to say? Or
I feel like that those two get combined so much when like some I can ignore sounds usually. But if it's like a certain, like if I'm trying to sleep, I easily wake up to any sound that's out of the norm. But I feel like it's the combination of people and what they are doing is like the real like, because it's like a combination of two things, and people, you can't control people because people are dumb.
Yeah. So I have two more questions for you guys, and we'll wrap up the interview. Okay. So first one is I'm curious. So Vivian, you're super NT, right? So I kind of want to do like a test between you guys because you're like, Vivian's NT and Avis NF.
I didn't sign up for a test.
No.
What?
It's not a crazy test or anything. No. Yeah.
Joking.
No. No, I'm just curious. Let's talk about values. Like I want to talk about values. Okay. So how fast can you guys like tell me what your personal value system is, like in your FI, like your top 5 values, let's say. So I'll give you an example so you know what I'm talking about, okay?
Oh God, feminine sensory.
Hang on, let me pull out the filing cabinet.
Okay, fine, fair enough. But like, you can just give me like a general value then for yourself, if you don't know the exact words. But I'm just kind of curious, because like like Vivian, you have demon FI, but it's sleep savior. So, you're like a weird paradox. Yeah, you're like a walking weird paradox because like, you're an extrovert that is very introverted seeming, and then you sleep FI demon, but sleep savior. So yeah, you're like a walking paradox essentially, you know. um, and then so value system. I'll just use myself as an example, and then you guys can like just mention anything that pops in your head. Okay. So for me, obviously, number one is freedom as an EP. And then the other thing that is important to me is authenticity, honesty, courage, and growth. Right. So before I do anything, before I participate to do anything, I always check up on my values. Even though I'm sleep last, I still check up on it. Like I always check on it. But what about you guys? Like, do you check on that like emotional set of values first before you do anything? Is that something that you do? And what are your personal values if you were to name a few that like really important to you to adhere to at all times?
Honesty. Like I think it definitely comes same line with authenticity. So I might not go through like an actual words, or because I'm not audio or visual, but it's all a feeling of like, am I feeling right about it? Is it myself? Am I feeling fear? If I'm feeling fear, what is it about? So is that gonna help me grow, or is this something like, so it's like something I'm not comfortable with. So yeah, like growth and honesty and authenticity and curiosity, happiness, great, and gratitude.
So the curiosity is coming from the SE in the bottom. Then that's like it's like a what do you call it? Some word I'm looking for. It's like a growth path essentially, because it's like the triggering functions, right? So you want to
yeah, for sure. Like I find that's keeping, yes, I don't want to be stuck as well. So there's that freedom thing that I'm always, instead of directly looking for freedom, it's more like I'm trying to avoid being stuck. And a good way out of it, I guess, is that curiosity always kind of make my day really fun. Yeah.
So you want like an escape route. There's like an emergency exit.
I don't know. My worst fear is always being stuck.
I see. So as long as you have an emergency exit, you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Because almost always, like, what is the worst that could happen? Like, if I can think about the worst that could happen and I'm okay with it, then there's nothing to be afraid of.
All right. And then Vivian?
Had to process like 10 different things there. All right. So one of the main ones, this is like, I have images in my head, but they're hard to put into words. But like one of the main ones is like I've said this motto before. It's like, have courage and be kind. It's like through any interaction I have with someone else, I'm always thinking about how can I say this in the nicest way possible? How can I make this interaction flow the smoothest and not hurt them, even if I am myself hurt? Like, that's like something that I just like, I want to treat others how I want to be treated. While sometimes I have to treat others the way they want to be treated, even if I don't like the way they want to be treated. But it's like the reciprocal of, I'm going to do what is right for me and you do what's right for, like, my another one is like, you do you. Like, which is like, that's why I'm like, whenever they talk about blasters controlling other people, I don't relate to it, because I'm like, no, don't control people. That's what I hate that. Don't control me and I won't control you and we're all good, right?
It's I think that's because we don't want to be controlled, so that's why it's like, you do you, because it's the fear of like, we want to control ourselves. That's the difference.
Don't tell me what to do. I can control myself. I can figure out what I want to do with my life.
So maybe like the IPs and EJs are more controlling with people than like the double decider ones, because like as an IJ you're still a double decider, right? So you I mean, I guess for an IJ you would be controlling about your system as opposed to the person itself. You're like, I don't care what you do with your life, but don't mess with my system, you know? It's like
No.
that kind of deal.
My system, my life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So last thing to cover is, what do you guys want to learn from each other? I know Vivian, you consume last, but what do you guys want to learn from each other? Like, you know, because you guys are like kind of like opposite. Like Avis, you have a blast last, and Vivian, you have consume last. So you guys have what the other person has. So if you were to learn something from, because I remember earlier at the start of the interview, I'm like, if you guys combine together, you're complete, right? So how can you be more complete, I guess, if you were to take some of the superpowers, you know, your jumper and standard counterpart already has? Who wants to ask the first question to their, I mean, who wants to ask the question to their counterpart first?
You mean ask a question, or because you already asked the question?
Yeah. So what do you want to learn from Vivian, from her like specific?
No, I just really liked about how they can always be so concise and give conclusion really straightforward.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it a lot, actually. Because I'm like, my girlfriend sometimes, you know, she talks in circles before she gets to the point. I'm like, and I'm like, no offense, because you're guys the same type, obviously. I'm like, come on.
What's your point? Like, what I'm trying to say is, just hold on. I have to talking in process too.
Yeah, it's been like half an hour, and I could have said what you said in like 2 sentences, you know. But okay. Well, maybe, what about you, Vivian? What would you like to learn from Avis?
I guess my like main question would be like surrounding consume, like from what I've observed of other like sleep consumes or consume sleeps, there's like a smaller consume bucket in some ways. So my question, I guess, would be like, what are your like areas of consume? Like, as a comparison for me, who has like 3 buckets.
Oh.
It's a very broad question.
My areas of consume is basically, it really depends on where my NI goes, right? So and also any type of my activity I want to delve into. So I am appearing more ADHD than other. So I would, for example, when I have probably 10 books on the go, and also like 2 audiobook at the same time right now. And I will be jumping around like different things about sci-fi, history, psychology, and I have a novel on the go. I have self-help thing, like, I don't know, like Genius Zone. So it just I have many different things, and then depending on what activity I'm doing, like if like I'm going into a vertical dancing stuff and a circus stuff, then I want to know about that and about specific things about those activities. So I want to dig down into the whatever my interest is, and then because I want to know, where can this go to, where can this lead to, and I can't help it. It's just like, oh, I want to know the path. or and also like it kind of all connect in a way, like, oh, this activity actually kind of related to the other one, and I'm making all this and I pattern connection too. So it's just, I don't know, I constantly trying to consume different things and trying to make connection out of all the different area that seem to be not related, but actually I find a pattern in them, which just makes it really interesting. So that's how my consume bucket is. It is probably seem kind of random from outsider, but it all kind of still in the big area of things that I'm interested in. Like, I'm not gonna read a manual about camera, for example. Yeah, like some of the stuff that my friends are really into like gears and stuff, and I'm just like, it just it's just outside my bucket, and just not gonna touch them until I'm really curious about something about photography. Then I would do that as a tool to achieve my goals. So I think it's definitely about where my NISE take me, because I do realize I spend a lot of my time in the thing world for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like, because like I have like maybe 3 spots that I go: Google, my books, and maybe YouTube. So like, and it sounds like you have more sources, maybe.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
where you get information from, whereas I tend to go to the same places too often.
Right, different channels for sure, because like if I'm like chatting with a friend or something like that, when someone has a question, I'm always the one that's kind of try to look it up right away. I want to know
too.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, sure, internet's for sure. I also like to ask people, I like to ask experts. So I like to keep a network of people that I know who to ask. Yeah, I find books are awesome. And yeah, and then sometimes it's just because I find different channel and different media are just media, right? For places for you to gather more information, more knowledge, and also by throwing yourself into different experiences, that is super. It's something that you cannot just gather from words or internet research. You have to be there to learn that, to experience that, because sometimes a lot of things you can't channel or learn through languages. You have to feel it. You have to try it. That's my tester modality. Like, totally just like, yeah, that's the best way I learn, is to throw myself in the experiences. Yeah.
And then meanwhile, Vivian is taking pictures with books. No, I'm just I like, that's my favorite picture. It's the best. Consume less.
Oh yeah, I've never read that book either.
Yeah.
Too big.
I was like, when Vivian sent me that picture for my thumbnail, I was like, this is the best. Consume less, holding a book, pretending to read a book.
It's like this thick red book of like all these fairy tales, and it's just so many fairy tales, and I'm just like, I don't want to read all of this. Yeah. I'll just go read like a web comic. It has pictures and words, and it's fast to read.
Yeah. You know, the biggest thing I noticed too, I mean, Avis, so you channel change a lot, even though you're like an IJ. You still
I am quite a bit. I do, yes.
Yeah. And then the thing I noticed with like the extrovert sensing channel changing versus like extrovert intuition channel changing it's like it's not very obvious the extrovert sensing channel changing until you see them in person. Because like remember we had so Vivian we had a meetup in here in Vancouver with Avis came and like a bunch of ESFPs came and I was like, oh, this is what extrovert sensing channel changing is. Because like all the lead SEs were like looking around the room, like they couldn't stop like
Yes.
looking around the room, like the menu. What's in the menu? Oh, what are they doing in the kitchen? Oh, like I'm like, oh, that's what those guys are doing, Because like the NE, they just change topics, right? But like the SE, they changed like I was like, just like when I'm driving, she's talking to me, she'll pause. Like
Yeah.
it's like so
Squirrel. It's literally like squirrel.
Yeah,
Like
and I
that.
guess for
Yeah.
Vivian, you don't do that then. You're just like, we're talking about
Yeah,
this
straight
in
Monday.
my
on.
own world.
Yeah. All right. So we'll wrap it up here. So thanks guys for coming out and like talking about your differences and similarities. I think it was pretty good actually for the differences. Like you guys have like quite a few differences, but we weren't able to see it until like we prodded deeper. And then the similarities was also quite present, of course, since you're both it's obvious the NI is still the boss at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.